Hello, welcome, please come in. It's time to resume our Dark Types only journey, this time in Pokémon X. I decided to continue this series in Pokémon X because it adds a few things that should make this a bit more interesting. First, because we're post-Gen 4, we get the physical special split, so my Dark Types won't get screwed by being physical attackers while Dark Type is a special type. And then of course is the introduction of Fairy types in this generation, which means Dark Types have a brand new weakness they'll have to contend with. Will a whole new type, tailor-made to bring them down, be enough to make Dark Types fall apart? Well, we'll find out. Wake up, chat with my mom, and meet with my assortment of friends at the cafe. This game went with a variety of rivals rather than just one, which is an interesting idea, even if only one of them is actually challenging. It's already time to choose a starter, and my only option is Froakie, because this is the first time in any of these series that I'll actually get to use my starter. Because while Froakie isn't a Dark type, its final evolution Greninja is. And we're gonna have to settle for a few will-be Dark type eventually Pokemon, because it turns out Pokemon is kind of weird about giving you Dark types early on. On to Route 2, where there are no new Pokemon for me to get. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit. Then through this forest that definitely isn't just Viridian Forest. There are some trainer fights, but none that are worth talking about, and I've reached Santaloon City, which has the first gym for me to face. Which is not ideal, because I both don't have any Dark types, just a Pokemon that will eventually be a Dark type, and I only have one Pokemon. The gym trainers themselves are mostly easy, as they only have one Pokemon as well, so while I do have to leave to heal up a few times, I get through with pretty minimal difficulty. And then is the actual gym leader. I use rare candies to get Froakie up to the level cap as normal, and head into the fight. And yeah, that's not looking great. I can use Lick to get off of paralysis against the Surskit to bring it down, but by the time Vivillon comes out, I'm at just over half HP. And yeah, nope, that did not go great. The problem is that while bug types are generally not that strong, I don't have any way to target their weaknesses with Froakie, and Vivillon has a base stat total 100 points higher than my first form starter. And while I'd love to get some new moves, or new Pokemon to pad out my options, I actually can't get access to, anything. Let's give the gym another few attempts. Lick deals pretty weak damage, but it's practically essential to inflict paralysis in the hopes it robs the opposing Pokemon of enough turns. It doesn't help that Viola also has a potion to heal up when I get one of her Pokemon low. It's really not looking great here, and I'm honestly pretty sure I'm just gonna have to break and use items again. The Surskit is just taking out too much of my health, and then the Vivillon is just a much stronger Pokemon. I throw myself at the fight a few more times, and I cannot believe how lucky I got here. Rather than bothering to lick the Surskit, I instead just spam Quick Attack to bring it down with a still decent chunk of HP, then spam Bubble as the Vivillon keeps using Tackle instead of Infestation, until I get it down to red HP and can use a final Quick Attack to win the fight. If that Vivillon had used any other move even once, I would have been completely screwed. Alright, that's the first gym. I'm really not liking that the very first gym was such a difficult encounter, but hopefully things will lighten up once I actually get some more Pokemon. Fortunately, I have a while to do that, because the next gym is so far away. Seriously, why did they split the first and second gym by so much story in this game? Viola's ace is level 12, but the next gym leader's ace is level 25? That's so stupid. Whatever. Into the next route, which doesn't really have anything worth grabbing, so I just skip forward and get the return TM, which could be useful. Ah, Lumio City. Very pretty, very impressive, basically impossible to navigate properly. Professor Sycamore decided he wants to fight, and, okay, Sycamore has all 3 Gen 1 starters, which is not great for me, but the next level cap is pretty high, so I might as well get my Froakie up to level 16 to evolve. Ah, that's much better. Frogadier can sweep through all of these level 10 chumps. I then pick Charmander as my second starter, mostly because it will make for a good HM user later. Then I get lost for a bit because the city is very confusing, and there is no map. I mean, there is a map, but it's not actually helpful in finding anything. Okay, finally, here is Route 5, and here I can finally catch my next Pokemon, Pancham. Another Pokemon that isn't actually a Dark type yet. But it will be once it reaches a high enough level, and only if I get another Dark type by then. And it's time for a rival fight against Tiano, who has a single level 12 Corphish. So anyway. Then, other child whose name I don't remember at the moment gives me some free honey, which means I can get another Pokemon. And this time, it is actually a Dark type. Right now, even. By using that honey and these purple flowers, I can get a Horde encounter, which takes a few attempts because these stupid Gulpin are way more common, but eventually I get Scraggy, a fighting dark type which can have Moxie, which boosts the attack stat every time it KOs a Pokemon. And these stupid Scraggy having Sand Attack, and there being 5 of them, means catching a single one takes so long. But finally, eventually, I managed to snag one, and it does indeed have the very good Moxie ability. Yeah, I'm expecting this Scraggy to do some good work for me. The next town has nothing too exciting, so it's on to Route 7, which is blocked by a Snorlax, so it's time to actually head up Route 6, which gets me to Parfum Palace. Here I can grab the Cut HM and the Pokeflute to wake up that obnoxious Snorlax to get on with my actual journey. But don't worry, I still have a ways to go before the next gym, because again, they really put a lot of story in between the first and second gym. And the next route has a double battle with Serena and I teaming up against Tierno and Trevor, which seems unfair to them, given that I'm the player and Serena is the only rival worth anything in a fight. So that goes basically how you'd expect. Brief trip through a cave and I reach the coast, which is lovely. And raining. But then to Ambret City. Still not the city with a gym though. Got a ways to go for that yet. But the game is doing a lot of chattering about Mega Evolution, the new gimmick for this generation. Would be a real shame if almost all the Mega Stones were post-game exclusives, wouldn't it? Anyway, the coast does have a few new Pokemon. First, Absol, my best friend from Ruby who swept the game. Except unlike Ruby, Absol can actually get stabbed from using Dark-type moves now that they aren't all special types. It can also have an ability that boosts critical chance, which is way better than Pressure that it had in prior generations. Absol is on the team. Absol also has a Mega Evolution this game, so I can... Oh, what's that? It's post-game only? Shocking. Maybe I can use a different Mega then. Next up is Inkay, a Psychic Dark type that has the Contrary ability, which reverses any stat changes it may suffer in a fight. It also learns a good defensive suite of moves, which is very nice. Well, that's all for Ambret City and the coast. Time to move on to the next route, where I catch a Sandile, which is a Ground Dark type Pokemon that also has Moxie. So yeah, another potential sweeper joins the team. In fact, Sandile might end up being a bit better because it doesn't have a 4x weakness to Fairy type moves. We'll see. Then through this Fairy type cave, and it's time to properly introduce this game's evil team, Team Flare, who suck, and are just not really a threat in any way, so I will mostly be skipping them. They do make a good test of Scraggy's Moxie ability though, so that's neat. Flare dealt with, I can reach Solage Town, which I'm sure I pronounced perfectly, first try. And it is finally time to do another gym. A rock climbing gym, which is a nice change of pace. I'm not really worried about this because I actually have a full team of dark types against this gym leader's 2 Pokemon, really? Well, let's see how you do, Grant. He leads with Amora, so I lead with Pancham, who one-shots it. Then Pancham goes down to Tyrunt, so I send in Scraggy, who takes out a good chunk of health with Brick Break. I send in Frogadier to use Water Pulse a few times before Frogadier also goes down. Then into Absol to finish the fight with a quick attack. Yeah, that may not have been my most graceful fight, but it was good enough to complete the gym and get my second gym badge. Only 6 more to go. Good thing the rest aren't so spread out. That would be a nightmare. Time to press on and get this train really moving. Up on Route 10, I can pick up my next Pokemon, Eevee, which I catch in a luxury ball to get a nice immediate boost to its friendship, because I want an Umbreon on the team. Umbreon may not be a great attacker, but it is bulky as heck. I also get to catch a Houndour, a fast special attacker, really the only one I will get, and that fire typing is a very nice addition to my offenses. Houndoom also has a Mega Evolution. What's that? It's post-game and a version Y exclusive? I'm shocked, really, just shocked. At this point, I elect to drop Pancham, at least for now because it's not actually a dark type yet, and Absol. Much as I adore Absol, I did just use one to sweep Ruby. Might as well give some other dark types a chance to shine. And with 2 Moxie Pokemon, I'm sure one of them will be able to carry the team. And it's immediately time for Houndour to evolve, thanks to some rare candies. Then on to the next route where I have to deal with some more Team Flare nonsense. Hooray! And then I reach Geosenge City, another town that doesn't matter because it doesn't have a gym. So it's time to head east through Route 11 and into Mirror Cave, which has a bunch of boring trainer fights and really nothing else, which means I've now reached Chaleur City. So I get to explore Mega Tower, and by explore I mean fight Serena, because I don't actually get to explore here quite yet. I lead my Houndoom against her Meowstic, which means a couple bites are all it takes to bring it down. Next she sends in her Absol, so I Smog and then roar it out of the field. Then I can Smog Quilladin to poison it. Houndoom is almost down, but I do get a bit of damage. I really wish Houndoom had a Fire-type move. I guess I'll send in Scraggy, maybe I can get some Moxie boost. Scraggy loses most of its HP from flinch attack, so by the time Absol comes back in, I have no health and go down in another hit. I've seen what Absol can do, so this isn't looking super great. Absol bites and takes out Sandile, then takes out Frogadier. Inkay survives just long enough to get off one attack, but that is it. So I send in Eevee, who can thankfully finish the fight with a quick attack. Huh, that was actually way closer than I expected it to be. Absol is really scary, it turns out. Well, that train wreck handled, it's time for the fighting-type gym leader. So that's surely gonna go great. The gym trainer fights themselves go fine, I guess. Not great, but fine. And while leveling up for the leader, I get Sandile to evolve into Krokorok, and Inkay evolves into Malamar. I really think Malamar is going to be a huge carry in this gym. I, of course, lead with Malamar, because what else can I do, and set up Reflect to reduce the damage from physical moves. Malamar can then take out Mienfoo with a few Psybeams, which also wastes Karina's high potions. Another few Psybeams takes out Halucha, and then 2 more takes out Machoke. So yeah, I guess Malamar managed to sweep the entire gym through the power of Reflect and Psybeam. I expected Malamar to carry me a bit in that gym, but I did not expect her to be able to sweep by herself. No idea why Machoke decided to use Rock Tomb instead of something more damaging. Well, that's Gym 3 down, and just so much left to do. Next up is the Mega Lucario v Mega Lucario fight, which unlocks Mega Evolution. Would be real nice if Mega Evolution was available in any meaningful degree before the post-game, wouldn't it? But next up is to evolve Eevee into Umbreon, now that its friendship is high enough and it's nighttime. And on to Route 12, where I can use Surf to access the next area. How long has this video been going? Oh dear, really gotta start hurrying this along or this video is gonna be a long one. Grab some leftovers so Umbreon can really be unkillable, and we're gonna keep this train moving! And that starts in Cormoline City, where I can grab a nice silk scarf and ride the tram on the way to the next gym. Then grab a black sludge that I will want later. And it's time for the next Serena fight. I again lead with Houndoom, who easily bites down her Meowstic, then gets some good damage on the Absol with a few Fire Fangs. Scraggy takes out Absol with Brick Break and gets the Moxie boost. Scraggy lives a bite from Quilladin, but then flinches. I don't really have any good attacks to target grass types with Houndoom down. Might as well send in Umbreon. Umbreon's natural bulk combined with leftovers means this showdown is slow, but basically inevitable. Especially since Umbreon has Moonlight to heal further. Not that I even needed it in this fight. Alright, Serena is down, time for the next gym, which involves a bunch more climbing. Good news is that this gym is a grass-type gym, which my party is less weak to than fighting, but I guess I still have 2 Pokemon with grass weaknesses. And only 1 good offensive Pokemon here. Oh well, that should be more than enough. Time to see how the Ramos fight goes. I lead with Houndoom, because I don't really have anything else to do. Fire Fang isn't enough to one-shot, but that does mean Ramos wastes all his potions on Jump Bluff. Go-Goat then takes out Houndoom with Bulldoze. Not ideal, but not unexpected. Umbreon takes basically no damage and can use Return to take down the Go-Goat. Next up is Weepinbell, which does poison Umbreon, but it doesn't end up mattering. Umbreon is just way too tanky. I do get to use Moonlight once to supplement leftover healing, but then another Return can finish off the gym. Alright, 4 gyms down, and that wasn't graceful, but Umbreon is really just a wall. I'm usually more a fan of fast attackers, but Umbreon is pretty useful to just soak hits. No time to rest though, I've got more to do. I catch a Trapinch to evolve into Vibrava so I have someone to use the Fly HM, then into the power plant to deal with some Team Flare nonsense. Which has some boring Team Flare fights and nothing else. Even the admins are complete pushovers. That done, I can return to Lumio City, where the power is back on. And that means I can already head into the next gym fight, which is an electric-type gym. And that's about the same as before, with me having exactly 1 good Pokemon to use here. Good news is that it's Krokorok who can benefit from that Moxie power boost. The gym itself is quite easy to get through the various quiz questions, and it's time to face down the gym leader, Clement. And while leveling up, my Frogadier finally evolves into Greninja, which means my party is actually all dark types now. Not that Greninja is going to be super useful in this electric-type gym. Anyway, Clement leads with Emolga, I lead with Umbreon, by mistake, I assume. Emolga switches out with Volt Switch, so I switch into Krokorok, which one-shots Magneton with Dig, Moxie Boost, then one-shots Heliolisk with Dig, another Moxie Boost. Sadly, Emolga is immune to Dig, so I use Crunch, which isn't enough to one-shot. Really? Huh, would have thought 2 Moxie Boosts would have been enough. I switch into Umbreon, who can tank every attack Emolga has and deal decent damage with return. Clement has 2 potions and Umbreon gets paralyzed, but Emolga doesn't have nearly the offenses it would need to break through Umbreon, and I can finish the fight. That is 5 gyms down, let's keep on going. And next up is Route 14, which means it's time for another Serena fight. I lead with Umbreon, who can deal big damage to Meowstic and is basically unstoppable. But once Chestnut comes in, it's time to bring in Houndoom to Fire Fang it down. Serena then brings out her real ace, Absol, who manages to take out Scraggy without losing any HP, so I bring Umbreon in. Absol hits pretty hard, but between Leftovers, Moonlight, and Umbreon's natural bulk, he's able to beat down the Absol before it can threaten to sweep my entire team. Serena, might I recommend Sword Stance? And I get a new Pokemon, Skorupi, a poison bug type that will evolve into a poison dark type, which is very weird, but it does mean I have a very good defensive typing, with its only weakness being ground type moves, a type none of the rest of my team is weak to. Then north to Laver City, which houses the next gym, which is a fairy type gym. Very curious to see how this is going to go for me, given that most of my team is weak, or 4 times weak, to fairy type moves. The gym trainers themselves aren't too bad, mostly because they all only have 2 Pokemon at most. And you know what? I think it's time to drop Scraggy from the team, at least for now. With fairy types, that 4 times weakness is not great. And Krokorok, no, Crocodile, is also very capable of being a Moxie Sweeper. And Skorupi, now Drapion, brings some much needed bulk and resistance to the team. Gym time! Valerie leads with Mawile, I lead with Crocodile. Dig isn't strong enough to kill it in one hit, but all that means is Valerie wastes her valuable potions before it dies. Then out comes Mr. Mime. Foul Play deals less damage than I'd hoped, despite being a neutral hit and having a Moxie boost. So, after a devastating Psychic, I Dig, and that takes out the rest of Mr. Mime's health. And another Moxie boost, which is sadly wasted because Sylveon has Quick Attack. That's okay. Next up is Drapion, who deals big damage with Poison Fang, and while Dazzling Gleam is pretty strong, Black Sludge healing very much helps. Sylveon is able to outlast and beat down Drapion, but only briefly thanks to the poison damage. Alright, that was potentially the scariest gym fight, handled pretty easily. I wish I had some better ground attacks with Crocodile, but at least Drapion is pretty strong and bulky. Valerie beaten, it's time to break into the Pokeball Factory, which again is a bunch of Flare nonsense, none of which is that interesting because all the Flare trainers are very weak. That done, I can head east into Route 15, and through there to Dendamil City. This town has the Move Deleter and Move Reminder, not super useful now, but I'll be back a little later to forget and then remember some moves prior to the Elite Four. But next, I need to head north and into this icy cave. Team Flare is here making trouble and needs to be dealt with, which of course is very easy. Seriously, why do none of the random trainers in this game have any number of Pokemon? I complained a lot in my normal-only Black playthrough, how there are 400 trainers all with 2 Pokemon each, but in this gen, it looks like they decide to drop the number of trainers and still give them no Pokemon? That done, I get to ride this Mamoswine through the deep snow, which gets me to Anastar City, the location of the next gym. But first, into the Pokemon Center, where I can grab that's not the Flamethrower TM. Guess my timing was off. Well, I'll come back later for that. For now, it's another Serena fight. She leads with Meowstic again, I lead with Drapion, who can deal big damage with a few Night Slashes, and you gotta love that Black Sludge. Ooh, Vaporeon does not mess around though. Okay, let's send in Malamar to Psychic Cut. That did less damage than I'd hoped. Probably should have set up Light Screen. Oh well, a final Foul Play can bring it down. Okay, now to set up Light Screen, which gets broken immediately. Okay, time for Umbreon to stall down. Holy crap, that actually dealt really good damage. Okay, let's send in Crocodile to try some Dig, which, combined with the poison from Toxic Spikes, works. And I'm actually faster than Absol, so a few power-up punches are enough to bring it down. Alright, Serena, still a bit scary. Good thing I got power-up punch from the fighting gym. Alright, the next gym time. This is a Psychic gym. I am shockingly unconcerned. The gym itself is pretty interesting, but the trainers themselves are very easy, as per normal. Alright, Olympia, let's see what you've got for me. Night Slash deals less than I'd like, thanks to Reflect. Critical hit is nice though. Then Slowking takes okay damage. Not yawn. Ugh. Alright, I'll switch into Malamar. And yawn again. Back to Drapion. Reflect wears off, letting Night Slash finish off the Slowking. And all that Olympia has left is Meowstic, which does have Calm Mind, which is a bit scary, but of course a few Night Slashes are enough to bring it down. It would have been fewer Night Slashes, but Olympia of course uses some potions. And that's Gym 7. Shockingly not that difficult, considering that it is a type I am most suited to deal with. And Olympia doesn't really have anything to stop that. Start of a new recording day, so I can pick up the Flamethrower TM here, so Houndoom can finally have a decent special attacking fire move. Umbreon goes in the box, because I'm going to need my HM Charizard to fly back to Lumio City, because it's time for a lot of Team Flare nonsense. Into Lysander's cafe, then into the back room, and it's time for my first Lysander fight. I start by throwing out some Toxic Spikes, then Drapion drops to Mienfoo. So it's time for Malamar to come in and Psycho Cut. Then use Thunderbolt twice, which I'm very glad I taught her using a TM. Next up, switch to Greninja against Pyroar for a big Surf. And finally, Lysander has Murkrow, which drops to another Surf. Alright, you're gonna need to do better than that, Lysander. Anyway, I'm gonna tear down your entire operation here. Okay? Okay. Team Flare then unleashes their ultimate weapon and just blows up a town. But it's not the town with the next gym, so I don't really care. I guess I should deal with it anyway. Which of course means more Team Flare nonsense. In case you are wondering, dear viewer, yes, this entire recording is called Flare Nonsense. Anyway, time for another Lysander fight. I lead Crocodile against his Mienshao. It does not go great. But I can send in Malamar to Psychic Cut down the Mienshao, and then Thunderbolt down the Gyarados. When Malamar goes down, I send in Greninja to surf the Pyroar and the Honchkrow. Another pretty easy Lysander fight. Then it's just a bunch of duo fights with Serena against Flare Grunts, which is, shockingly, not that difficult. And into the obvious Xerneas room to fight even more boring admins. What a waste of my time. And now it's time to fight Xerneas, which could theoretically be very scary because it's a Fairy-type Pokemon. I lead with Drapion because it's not weak to Fairy-type moves, and spam Strength to get a few hits off. Xerneas then spends a lot of time not attacking, so Drapion manages to solo it. Alright then. Oh, the game requires you to catch the legendary in this game. Okay, here's a Master Ball. The game then asks me several times if I want to add Xerneas to my team, which, no, thank you. I think I can take on Lysander myself, who is back again. I lead Drapion against his Mienshao, which means it's time to send in Malamar, who gets two-shot. That's not great. Crocodile, Dig, which means Mienshao kills itself with high jump kick recoil. I can then use Power-Up Punch to get some buffs, but Pyroar finishes off Crocodile. Time to send in Greninja to finish off the Pyroar, and then surf down the Honchkrow. But now it's time for Lysander's Mega Gyarados, which is definitely a problem. It's no longer quad weak to Electric, which doesn't even matter since I don't have any more Electric moves, and it also has very high stats. I do get some decent hits in with Drapion, but I just barely don't manage to take it out, and I have no usable Pokemon left. Alright, that sucks. Let's swap Umbreon back in. I really should have done that before heading into the Flare hideout, since I won't need any HMs from Charizard here. And back to the Lysander fight. Good thing he just stood around waiting for me to come back. This time I lead with Malamar, who can set up Light Screen and then Psycho Cut down the Mienshao. Malamar drops, so I switch into Crocodile. Dig takes out the rest of Pyroar's health and gets me a Moxie boost. Then some Power-Up Punches to really max out my attack. And finally the Mega Gyarados. One Power-Up Punch isn't quite enough, but it does deal a lot of damage, and I can send in Drapion to take it down with 2 Bug Buzzes. It was close though. I didn't realize Gyarados had Earthquake. And that is the Team Flare nonsense finally sorted. Next up is to head south from Anastar City on the route to the next gym. And next up is a fight with Sycamore that is barely worth writing about because it's a very easy fight. And then head south again, still on the way to that next gym. But first, it's time for some rival fights. First up is Shauna. Her Delcatty is a bit scary because it has a Fairy-type attack, but then my Crocodile can come in and Moxie Sweep her entire team by himself. Oh, and learn Earthquake as I go. That's convenient, especially with Delphox being her final Pokemon. Next rival, please. Tierno, who doesn't let me heal before he starts the fight. Unfortunately, he leads with Talonflame, who gets one-shot by Surf. Then I get a nice extra Sensory against Roserade before sending in Houndoom to finish the job. Last up is a Crawdaunt, who gets taken out by Drapion's Strength. Last up is Trevor, who has the decency to heal my Pokemon. His Raichu does take out my Malamar, but that just means it's time for Crocodile to come in and Earthquake for a Moxie boost. Another Earthquake takes out Florges, which means another Moxie boost. And while Aerodactyl loves to use Skydrop, it doesn't actually stop Crocodile from sweeping his team. Alright, time to move on, and that means it's time for Snowbell City, the next and final gym. It does require a bit of a side trip to get the gym leader back to do his job, but then it's time for the final fight. I'll never understand why Pokemon loves to make the late gym leaders Ice type. It happens in a few games, and Ice types are just so weak. Oh well, let's see what Wolfric can do. I lead with Houndoom, because obviously, and a single Flamethrower takes out Abomasnow. Cryogonal is weirdly fast and gets off a Confuse Ray, so after a Flamethrower, I send in Drapion to use Crunch. But instead, I hit myself in Confusion, and then Ice Beam, and then hit myself in Confusion, and finally hit with Crunch. After a bit of back and forth, Drapion manages to take out the Cryogonal. All that's left is Avalugg, who easily defeats Drapion with Avalanche, but then I can send Houndoom back in to finish the fight with Flamethrower. So yep, Ice-type Gym Leader is once again a free fight. Seriously, how do Ice trainers keep earning these high-level positions? Alright, Team Flare has been dealt with, and I have all the badges, which means all that's left is Victory Road and the Elite Four. And Victory Road has basically nothing too difficult. Victory Road in these challenges is basically always kind of annoying rather than an actual challenge. But there is a Serena fight. She leads with Meowstic, and I lead with Drapion, and a few crunches brings down her first Pokemon with relative ease. Vaporeon can deal big damage, but it isn't tanky enough to last against these crunches. Next up is Altaria, which is potentially a lot scarier, but a critical cross poison brings it down. Alright, all that's left is Chestnut, and I still have my entire team. So, while Drapion does go down, I can then send in Houndoom to finish the fight with Flamethrower. Sorry, Serena, like all of the mid-generation rivals, you are not that impressive. Ooh, nasty plot. Love that for me. Oh, right, you still have your Absol. How's a Flamethrower do? Almost a one-shot. And another Flamethrower. Okay, now I can be dismissive of you. Back to Victory Road progression, which proceeds, as you'd expect, with nothing interesting happening at all. But I have one more task to complete before I head into the Elite Four, and that is this boy, Zweilous, a Dark Dragon Pokemon. Admittedly, it does have a 4x weakness to Fairy-type moves. On the other hand, it has a 600 base stat total, so I'll take it. Especially when this is one of the few games where the Elite Four is actually a high enough level to use Hydreigon. It's also immune to Ground-type moves, which is nice defensive coverage. And all I have left is the Elite Four. Now, much like Gen 5, you can face the Elite Four in any order in this game, which does complicate my level up to the highest level of the Elite Four that I'm facing. So instead, I'm just going to get all my Pokemon up to level 64 and see how that goes. All the Ace Pokemon in the Elite Four are level 65, so I should stay under that this way, unless one of my Pokemon just keeps dominating. Oh, and during that, Zweilous evolves into Hydreigon, my Dark Dragon child. Everyone is set? No more delays, let's get into it. And first up is the Fire-type specialist Malva. I lead with Crocodile, hoping to get a Moxie sweep, but her Pyroar is both very fast and very strong. Time to head into Greninja, who can finish off the Pyroar. Then the Talonflame. Then the Torkoal? And the Chandelure. Okay then, I was expecting the Elite Four to be less embarrassing. Next up is Seabold, the Water-type expert. I lead with Malamar, my only Pokemon good at fighting water types, and she doesn't even manage to clear the first Pokemon. Alright, Hydreigon is strong and fast, let's follow up with that. Except Hydreigon isn't that strong, and Clawitzer has Dragon Pulse. So, while Hydreigon does beat the Clawitzer thanks to a flinch, he is on borrowed time. Next up is Starmie, which thankfully is a Psychic type. Unthankfully, it has Dazzling Gleam. So it's into Drapion, who takes a critical Surf, but does barely manage to finish off the Starmie. Gyarados is next, which is both very tanky and has Earthquake. Greninja do something? Greninja has Ice Beam for neutral damage, but Gyarados is really tanky. And another Earthquake finishes it. And Gyarados has succeeded at doing a Dragon Dance sweep. So the Elite Four aren't going to be a complete cakewalk. What are my options here? I'm really not using these barrier moves. Let's give Malamar Calm Mind for setup. And how about Grass Knot to Greninja for some additional coverage, especially against this Elite Four? Alright, back in, but this time leading Greninja so I can save Malamar for later in the fight. Grass Knot deals okay damage, and then in Aura Sphere kills Greninja. Then into Drapion, who can take out Clawitzer, but is left at half health. Gyarados then pops in to finish him off. Okay, Malamar, time to show off that Thunderbolt. Less good than I'd hoped, but the Gyarados Dragon Dances instead of attacking, and then attacks for big damage before going down. Barbaracle is up, and Malamar is out. Crocodile maybe do something? Alright, that was technically something. Hydreigon, I choose you. Okay, now it's back to the Starmie with Dazzling Gleam, which Hydreigon survives to get in a hit? Hydreigon, you are 4 times weak to that. How? Okay, I send in Houndoom, and Starmie sets up a screen instead of attacking, so Houndoom can finish the fight. Alright, Seabold, you have earned my grudging respect. That was real spicy. Next up is Dragon-type expert Drasna. I lead with Greninja to take advantage of Ice Beam, which deals a lot less damage to Dragalge than I had hoped. Next, I send in Crocodile to get a free buff with Power-Up Punch while they heal. And then Outrage, which Crocodile learns at level 60 for some reason. Outrage continues and one-shots Altaria, and then Dredagon, thank you, Moxie. Last up is Drasna's Noivern, but Crocodile is confused from Outrage. And slower, so it didn't even matter. Hydreigon, can you make use of your considerable bulk? Yes, but barely, but then Hydreigon goes down. So I send in Malamar, who is pretty tanky and gets off a Psycho Cut to finish off the 3rd Elite Four member. That went a lot better than Seabold. It's into the last Elite Four, and I did not exceed level 65, so no issues with the level cap. Nice. And the last Elite Four is Steel-type Wickstrom. I lead with Crocodile to make use of his ground moves, and an Earthquake takes out Klefki. Then another Earthquake takes out Aegislash. Next is Scizor, which isn't weak to ground moves, but I have 2 Moxie boosts. Out comes Probopass, which I can't one-shot thanks to Sturdy, but I am faster, and I can 2-shot, so it's really just a delay before the 4th Elite Four member drops. Alright, this has all proceeded suspiciously smoothly. I guess it's time to head into the final chamber and face champion Diantha. She leads with Hawlucha, I lead with Greninja, who takes out Hawlucha with a single Ice Beam. Next up is Goodra, which tanks the Ice Beam, and then gets frozen? Really? A freeze at this late hour? I guess I'll switch into Crocodile? I get in a Power-Up Punch, and another. Diantha does use a full restore, but I already have 3 attack boosts. I could use Outrage, but I don't want to get confused, so it's time for Shadow Claw. And the Moxie boost. Then 4 times boosted Power-Up Punch against Aurorus. Then a super effective Shadow Claw against the Gourgeist. Followed by a super effective Earthquake against the Tyrantrum. And finally Diantha's ace, a Psychic Fairy Mega Gardevoir, which drops to a single Shadow Claw before it gets to take a single action. Okay then. I really was expecting the champion fight to be anything, but that was basically a sweep. Did I take any damage? I mean, the 3-turn freeze obviously helped, but even so, that was something. And yes, there is technically one more required fight against this tall dude, but his Pokemon are 8 levels lower than the champion, and I got another freeze. What is happening? That is the 4th freeze in the endgame of a Pokemon game in this series alone. It is a 10% freeze chance. And that is Pokémon X, completed with only Dark types. I was really expecting that to be more painful than it was. I know Gen 6 is pretty easy across the board, but I figured the introduction and focus on Fairy types would do something, but it really didn't. Even the champion's ace died before it used a single move. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.